So much energy. Love it. Hi, my name is Jennifer Clinton. I'm the CEO here at Cultural Vistas, and it's really a pleasure to see all of you tonight. Tonight we are honoring our class of 2018 CV Fellows. 15 Americans that just really literally arrived off the plane like an hour ago. So anybody that you see like bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, so let's, if you can raise your hand if you are one of the returning CV Fellows. Let's give them a round of applause. And a warm welcome back. We have a room full of Cultural Vistas staff and other alums that were similar, just like you know, 2 years ago, some 20 years ago, but we just want to extend a warm welcome to you. And those of you that participated in different exchange programs many moons ago, I'm sure you can remember the feeling that you had of exhaustion, enthusiasm, excitement, maybe a little bit of sadness for you know, departing probably the great home that you made over the summer. So it's great to see you and welcome. So I want to just, we're going to have a discussion tonight about alumni, sort of the alumni communities, and we have 4 distinguished alums that are here tonight, and let you know that you now join an alumni network of over 100,000 people around the world, which is really, really impressive. Many of whom are here tonight, many of whom are here in New York City, and really all around the world. And we want to let you know that we'd love for you and those that are part of this alumni network to stay connected. And our goal and role is to really help find ways that you can call on this network of really successful individuals, very committed to providing, opening their doors and their networks to help you advance in your careers and really leverage the experience that you just came after. So we really encourage you to stay involved, stay active. You know, we have a very strong commitment to maintaining and developing an alumni network here at Cultural Vistas. So it's an invitation to you. So before we get started, I just want to say a couple of words about the very exciting year that we have here at Cultural Vistas. So you're now sitting in a new office that we just opened back in May. And very excited to be in this space. And in this room in particular, in the kitchen over here, we did this intentionally to be able to bring groups together, to bring our participants together, to bring our alumni together and other partners to have conversations like we are having tonight. So that's a very exciting step for us. We also have an office in Washington, D.C. and an office in Berlin, and I would have the opportunity to connect with stakeholders, alums, participants in Berlin this summer to talk about, you know, the great work that many of them are doing, and thank our partners that are there as well. We also are celebrating our 55th anniversary this year, which is very, very exciting. Kind of hard to believe that this entity has been around for that long, and plays a very, very important role in maintaining relationships between nations and between individuals. So we're going to be celebrating our 55th anniversary in September of this year, on September 27th here in New York City. We're going to be holding an awards dinner, starting with a symposium that will be held in this room in the morning from 9 to 1 on the future of work. And you'll see if you look at our website or get some of our emails, we're doing a lot of convenings around how the workplace is changing and how experiences like exchange programs and internships abroad really help you position yourselves and develop the skills that are necessary for an incredibly changing dynamic in how work is conducted and how we think about work going forward. So we'd love to have you participate in that. The awards celebration in the evening will be just a few blocks down the road at the National Museum of the American Indian. And the intent of it is really to thank and recognize our partners and stakeholders. And also we will be, it also is an opportunity for us to have supporters contribute resources to actually be able to fund programs like the CV Fellowship Program. So that program we started 5 years ago, and we have committed as an organization about $250,000 every year to help support Americans who don't necessarily would not necessarily have the opportunity or the means to do an internship abroad. It can be expensive. There's airfare, there's living expenses, and so we as an organization believe so strongly that not enough Americans go abroad to do internships, and we also believe that those that are going abroad tend to be from certain social strata. And so it's important that we get more Americans abroad and more that are really engaged in this work. So we would love to have you participate in that. We have some special pricing for young professionals, friends and family. So Richard Bogle on my team, I'll let Richard wave his hand there, is the one to be in touch with on how to get involved. And he's also looking for volunteers to help us kind of create buzz around this. He's looking for volunteers to help kind of put together a committee of people that can just help get the word out, help build enthusiasm around this. So if you're interested in doing that, we have some special kind of recognition opportunities for you, including attending the awards dinner at no cost. So Richard's the one to go to on that. We'd love to have your engagement on it, and you're bringing your networks to the table and your great social media skills as well. So with that, I think we're going to go ahead and move into our conversation that we'll be having. And I want to introduce our four very distinguished panelists tonight. So to my left, we have Lenice Collins, who was a Bosch alum. I don't remember what year. I'll ask. You don't even need to tell us.
No, we don't need to go back that far. Yeah, we won't mention what year.
Lenice now works at the United Nations, most recently transitioned over from Facebook, so we're really happy to have you, Lenice. And then we have Kwa Ma, who is a CBYX alum. How many CBYX alums are in the room? Awesome. We just had today, our partner from Germany's here. We had 75 Germans arrive yesterday to start off their program, and we're very, very excited about it. So, and then how many Bosch alum are in the room? Anybody? Rob, come on.
Rob's there. Rob's even Rob's gone.
And then we have, so Kwa, thank you for being here. Kwa's with Cornell Tech. Really, really interesting twist on higher education and preparing, all of us kind of for the future of work, which is great to hear. And then we have to Kwa's left is Galshat Matkarmova, who is a Muskie alum. And that's a program that we run providing internship opportunities to Fulbright scholars, which is a really great program. And then to Gashalt's left is Reagan Wilson, who's a 2017 Cultural Vistas Fellow. So we have a great representation of different programs that we run. So we will go ahead and get started. Can you hear me? No, yeah, there we go. Okay, so I'll start with Lenice. Lenice, tell us a little bit about yourself, what program you were on, and what are you up to now?
So my name's Lenice Collins, and do I need this? I can use it. I was a Bosch Fellow many, many moons ago, but my background is I'm a journalist by trade. So I spent about 15 years working as a journalist in the US and abroad, including stints in Iraq and Afghanistan and Haiti. And that's what I studied in school. And my road to the UN started when I was a Bosch Fellow, because I was going from Berlin on the train down to see another Bosch Fellow down in Cologne. And while I was there, I was sort of flipping through The Economist and ran across an ad for what's now called the YPP, the Young Professionals Program. So in order to recruit people to the UN, they administer a competitive recruitment exam in every subject that you can imagine. Social affairs, political affairs, architecture, engineering, photography, and I took the test in public information. And I had also taken the Foreign Service exam and passed the two at the same time, and decided that at that point, it was during the Bush administration, the tail end of that administration, and I didn't feel that I could really fully work in the Foreign Service in the U.S. State Department and fully commit myself. So some years went on and ended up getting recruited to the UN, and my first duty station was Geneva. And at that point, I interviewed for this job, and they were like, "Well, do you speak French?" And I was like, "No, I didn't study French. I grew up at home with a Spanish speaker and studied German to do this Bosch fellowship." And they were like, "Oh, well, if you had to study German, then fine, you can pick up French. Yeah, you got the job." And that was kind of how they were like, "Yeah, okay, you'll learn, fine." And then at a certain point, I went to Facebook for almost 2 years to work on some issues around news integrity, journalist safety, and some other things. And then just recently went back to the UN for a special advisor role a couple of weeks ago. So freshly back. And yeah, we can talk later about how my Bosch experience has kind of helped with all of that.
Awesome. Thank you. Go on. Tell us what you're up to. Yep, same question.
Yeah, so I work at Cornell Tech in the studio program. Cornell Tech, if you have not read the news recently, we've been all over the news. We're really kind of reimagining higher education and shifting the focus from Silicon Valley for the tech space into New York. Remember, Bloomberg put out an RFP about 4 years ago to really get the attention that we live in this great city of New York, lots of talent, fashion, finance is always here, but there's almost like a missing gap for technology. So Cornell University and Ithaca happened to have won the bid. We just opened our campus on Roosevelt Island in shiny new space. You don't know where it is. It's Upper East Side onto the map to the right.
From the UN.
Yeah, across from UN. It's really cool. If you ever get a chance to go, take the tram over. The view is really beautiful. And at the end of the island is the Four Freedoms Monument, and it's pointing at the UN. So it's really really significant to me. So I really like that where we're at now. And we operated outside of Google for the last 4 years. So we opened last fall. And so the studio curriculum, like I said, is just really understanding how work is changed and how we can affect leaders of not only tech, but also leaders who are going out to the work field, being able to be competitive within their workspace. So my job is to engage industry and bring what the industry practice are coming into academia, and academia pushing back and say, this is what our research is doing. And so those two things combined together force our students to really start thinking more broadly about what work can actually mean and how you apply technology to make a difference. And I was in the CBOX program 2010 to 11, based out in Mainz for most of it. I love Germany. Every chance I get to go back or even engage or practice German at any point, I get to do that. And how I am in tech was I came back from the program and really, I wanted to stay in Germany much longer after the program, but saw what was happening in San Francisco where I was living at the time. There was this tech boom that was coming back from the bubble had burst in early 2000, wanting to be a part of that. And then started just to dive into that and got recruited to come to New York, here in New York, working in a lot of other tech space, ad tech. And then the former CTO of Twitter approached me and someone I knew to say, Cornell Tech's doing something else, and why don't you join us? So I've been there for about 2 years now. Yeah, so we can talk about that later.
Thank you.
My experience, my experience is a little bit different than my peers here, because I'm from a different country, which is called Kyrgyzstan. Please don't confuse it with Kurdistan, because this is former Soviet Union country. So I've been as a Fulbright student at the University of Oregon for the last 2 years, and I've just recently graduated from that university with the degree of Master of Nonprofit Management. And last year, during this time, I did my internship with East West Management Institute, which is based in New York and Manhattan. This is an American-based international nonprofit organization. And my experience starts from Kyrgyzstan, from my country, because this international organization has a branch in many different countries, and in my country, they were doing one of the USAID programs, and I was engaged with this organization, and that's how I found my internship in New York while I was doing my master's in Oregon, and I was lucky to get this job currently because I didn't know what I'm gonna do like after my graduation, and all of a sudden in February I got a message from the vice president if I really want to join this team again for another 15 months or a year as a program manager and working with former Soviet Union countries. Now I'm working as a program manager, and my countries are Kyrgyzstan, my country, and Georgia, the country, Azerbaijan, and probably Uzbekistan. So I started my journey to this job back in 2013 when I started working for this organization as a higher education officer, and we were implementing nonprofit management education into the university system in Kyrgyzstan. So that's how I started learning what I really want to do in my master's degree. So that's why I applied for the Fulbright program, and luckily I got this fellowship, and I did my master's in the field that I wanted, and now I'm continuing my career within this program, and I hope I don't know what I'm gonna do next year, but I think there will be some other options for me. So we can talk more about my experience and as a Muskie or Fulbright later.
Reagan.
All right, so my name is Reagan. I was a Cultural Vistas Fellow, literally just a year ago. I was sitting, well, not in this building, in the other building. I was jet lagged straight from Bangalore, India, is where I did my fellowship. So when I was there, I was working for the Akshaya Patra Foundation, which is a non-governmental organization that is responsible for doing the school meals for children in the entire country. And I kind of took that right to where I am now, working at the Capital Area Food Bank, which is a nonprofit in Washington, D.C., where I am a program coordinator for senior meal services and for children's meal services as well. I recently graduated from Howard University this past May, and that's kind of all I've been up to. I got a job right out of school, which is a blessing, and I've been working in D.C.
Thank you so much. Thanks for sharing that. So first question to Lenice. What could you give an example of how you've been able to utilize your Bosch Fellowship and the networks that you developed through that fellowship to help you in your career trajectory?
Sure. So I would say that there are probably two aspects to it. So there's professional sort of growth and development and sort of the professional network, and there's also the personal network. There's so many examples of times when I've had other Bosch Fellows reach out to me with job leads, with reaching out to say, hey, my company, my office is hiring someone. I think you'd be great. And that still happens even 15 years after my fellowship experience. I was a Bosch Fellow in 2004. So we're getting on to 14, 15 years, and that has still, or how many times I've reached out to someone to say, hey, you know what? I saw that there's something in your office, and a friend of a friend. I have someone in my network who I think it would be great. And actually, one of our Bosch Fellows who's not here, who actually works right across the street, is the deputy counsel to the controller of the city of New York, Nicole Jacoby, who still lives in New York. She's an attorney, and she and I met before we did the Bosch. And we became fast friends, and then went there, and she was like, hey, that she's always like, hey, there are these things in the mayor's office. Do you know anyone? Can you recommend someone? So I would say that's the first thing. And then the second thing would definitely be on a personal level. So whenever I move someplace, I end up tapping into the network either for school or for the Bosch Fellowship. So when I moved to Geneva, I didn't know anyone there. It turns out there is a Bosch Fellow who works for the U.S. Embassy or the U.S. mission to the UN in Geneva, this woman named Wendy. And it was like, I don't know, it's probably unlikely. I'm just going to reach out and see if there's any Bosch Fellows here, if there's any Columbia alums here or whatever. And Wendy was there, and she literally, if you've ever dealt with the Swiss, to find an apartment, to do anything, it is not easy. And I did not speak French, and they were not going to speak English. And it was just, we were at an impasse. And Wendy was literally my lifeline to setting up my life in this city. So that's also happened, in a ton of places where you sort of reach out and you're like, I don't know, are there any Bosch Fellows who are here? And they just end up being like a lifeline, both professionally and personally. And that's as many years out of the program as I am, you still find that. And so it's like the first year or two, everybody's still in touch, no one's gotten married, no one's had kids, so everyone's still super into the program and keeping in touch with everyone. And then a few years later, you're like, oh, well, they had a kid, they're like dead to us, we don't even know them anymore. But really, like, as many years out of the program as it going almost, getting on towards 20, it's still like this incredible network.
Thanks. Those were great stories. So, Kwa, you talked a little bit about technology and the role technology plays in the world of work. I'd be curious to hear your advice on how you would give advice to all of us in the room of how to utilize technology to maintain networks.
As a person least qualified to give this advice, so I think, well, let's see. With the CBOG program, I think it's the largest alumni out of the program that Coach Vista runs. It's so vast that like it can get overwhelming, but I think just as an alum, you have to just tap into it as much as possible. So when I moved from San Francisco to New York, like reaching out to people and saying, I'm moving to New York, is anyone around? Like, let's connect, or, show me around the city. And I think just using technology in that way, because everyone is everywhere, you just never know, one of us will just pop up, but you have to ask, right? And like with social media, with this network that's being built, it's so much easier to send an email or like to find someone on LinkedIn and say, I'm in your area, do you know, like if you're looking for work, or I'm interested in this space. Leveraging that resource to be able to get the things that you need, because sometimes it's so vast that people get married, people move on with their life, that they're not thinking about anything else. And so if you just pop up one day, it's just like being an alum at your university, right? At Cornell Tech, we have really passionate alums. They're one of the reasons why we've actually won the bid, was like our past alums signed this 10,000 petition, went to the mayor's office and dropped it off. And it's like, we want Cornell Tech to be in New York. And so you can leverage the same way where, wherever you may be, looked up LinkedIn or tap into the actual network itself, send an email, and do meetups. There's a lot of things that you can do and organize on your own. If there's like, send an email like, hey, I'm hosting something in the city, come hang out and let's chat about like opportunities that you see or things that here in New York, because it's so vast, or even smaller city is a good way too, to send an email and have people show up and have a conversation around whether it's work or things that you're interested in doing. And I found that really useful anywhere I go. Like I went to Bangkok one time and it was like, is any alumni here? And it happened to be 2 from my year, and they were getting engaged. I was like, I want to meet you. And like, on the personal level, I think there's that relationship that you can always build. Just leverage technology as an easy way to stay connected, because it's so easy now. Hope that's helpful.
Awesome, perfect. So Gashal, you're still part of the Muskie program now? Or you? No, you finished. Okay, so I had the opportunity to be with the current cohort of Muskie participants in Washington, and it's a fascinating and amazing group of people. And what I noticed there was just strong ties amongst that group, even though they're working in all different parts of the country. Talk to us about how you've been able to stay in touch with your cohort of other Muskie participants that were on the program when you were doing it.
Yes, Cole mentions, I think it's like so easy today, like using Facebook or other social media tools. But however, I just recently had another experience. For example, our organization is bidding for a program for a USAID project, which is going to be like in Uzbekistan. So, and in my cohort, there was a woman who did her LLM in the United States, and she was also like a Muskie alum, and now currently she is in Uzbekistan, and I haven't been in touch with her like, I don't know, like for a year or what. And I just sent her a message, hey, someone from our organization are coming to Uzbekistan, and would you mind just to meet and talk about Uzbekistan, and the project is going to be like on rule of law in Uzbekistan. And she was so quick. It's kind of like very interesting that you know someone from you're sitting here and someone in Uzbekistan and like just responding to you like, hey, yes, I would love to meet, and even like I'm open to discussing opportunities in Uzbekistan and whatever. So that's like one story just recently happened to me while I just started working for this organization, and with other alumni who did their master's or Fulbrights, we're always in touch through Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram sometimes. So yeah, and email. So we communicate, and whenever like we were just talking about like, for example, I just moved in to New York and like searching an apartment or whatever. So like just random simple things, and you just communicate with people and just send them texts like, hey guys, do you know anything about this, or how do I commute here or whatever. So this is kind of like a very unique opportunity for all of us just to communicate whenever we have a chance.
Thank you. So Reagan, you are the one CV fellow who just finished last year, and you've got 15 other fellows that are just getting off the plane. What advice would you give to them, knowing this is kind of their first day back in the US?
Yeah, so I would think of, I mean, I don't know if you've been doing this already, but for me, I was so sick of eating rice every single day. I was like, my first thing was like, I need a meal that doesn't have rice. So whatever you've been craving that was like very typically like American or wherever you grew up, do that first. After you do that, relish being in New York City, being back in the United States. Just really take the time to reflect on what you've done. I know we were encouraged to journal every single day, which was really helpful for me because at the end I can kind of look back and be like, wow, like in just 8 weeks, this is what I've learned, this is how I've grown. And for me, it was just like, I had such an amazing experience when I was in India. It really inspired like the career path that I was on even more so. And gave me the little push to get over the senioritis that I had since like, even before I started college. I'm not a small person at all. And just kind of like relish in that, really hone in on it and make sure that you kind of think that I'm a big mantra person. So whatever experience you had, whatever you saw, whatever you did, whoever you met, just like I would take a moment to really sit in that and let it inspire the next path, whether it's with you finishing school, if you're graduating soon as well, your next career step, or if you go into a post-bachelor program. That would be my best advice because this program is so unique and so amazing. Like this is an opportunity a lot of people don't get. So just to be able to really capitalize on everything that you learn in such a short time, but it's so saturated with so many good experiences that can help you in life, both professionally and personally, etc.
Awesome. Thank you. I'd love to open it up to questions. Give you guys a chance to ask this great group any questions that you have.
I guess this is kind of for everyone. I would like to hear, what was the most significant experience that you had while you were a participant?
Oh. Well, I will say for me, so when you're a Bosch Fellow, you have a project that you have to do. So it could be a paper, it could be probably now like a video project, but you had to do some sort of thing that you sort of turned in at the end of the year of something that you studied. And so I did something on maybe the representations of Turkish Germans in the media or something, as a minority group, but I had sort of a side project that I did. And my friends will joke with me now that no matter where in the world I go, I can find somebody to do black hair. So I did this whole list of like where you could go if you were a woman of color in Hamburg, anywhere in Germany. Like I knew any place to go to get your hair done. And I can tell you now, I can tell you in Bangkok, I can tell you on the border between Turkey and Iraq, there's somebody I know who did my hair. So that was a thing for me, going out and experiencing, being a woman of color and finding these communities and finding these places. And that was part of my experience. And so a lot of times when people when I talk to people, they're like, oh, going abroad and staying for, a year, 2 years, 8 weeks, what have you. And some of the things, it's like a real concern. Am I going to be able to find products? Am I going to be able to do these things? And I love being able to say, no, go, because I can tell you someone in Zurich who's going to be able to do your hair, or in Congo, I know someone in Kinshasa, you can go get your hair done, not to worry. And so that was like this interesting, because I just made a thing out of being like, oh, I'm going to go to Leipzig and see if I can find someone. And that was like part of my travels there, just going from town to town, finding, small communities of Black immigrants.
You should turn that into an app.
I know, apps were not a thing when I was in Germany, but that literally would be an app now.
And so I guess two things. So being able to kind of conversate in German is one of the big experiences, but that just took a lot of like not being afraid to speak to people and then meeting people. So I still have really great friends who live in Germany that we keep in contact with anytime I go to Germany. One just actually came to visit. And then the other is just like having a global perspective of what I do. And we have to get a bad rep about when I say I work in technology, I always have to do with an eye roll, because in San Francisco, there's like this huge thing that everyone's looking at, and then here in New York, at least it's not finance, just kidding. So just with that in mind, like being able to have that experience and like knowing that I shared that 1 year experience with 72 other people, and I think everyone in this room has had like 10, 16, 20 other people with them in the program. I'm looking for opportunities to find other ways to be impactful in my work. And one of the experiences brought me to this year to being on the Hive UNHCR advisory panel, where we're using data to make impact on the immigration problem that's still going on now. So trying to help with that cause. And I think giving that experience and taking that and like seeing what I can do in my professional life, but how can I give back in other ways? It's just like, especially in this climate, also to not forget that. So those are the two things that I took away from that year.
Thank you.
Well, for me, I think, so Fulbright and Muskie, these programs are U.S. state government funded programs, and these two programs are my third and fourth programs that I participated in U.S. State Department programs. So my experience started like in 2005. Since then, I've been back and forth between my country and the United States. And the most significant and powerful experiences that I had, it's building a network, building professional and personal network among others, and being also like a cultural ambassador to not only to the visiting country, but coming back, returning to your country, you kind of like become a cultural ambassador of the United States, because back in my country, like in most of these post-Soviet Union countries, we have a different perception, like people may have a different perception about the United States. For example, my dad had a completely different perception about the United States. And when I first time like visited in 2005 and I came back to my country, and my dad asked like, what does it look like in the United States? And I said like that it's all about politics. People are different, and they're just like us, very hospitable, and they're always open to help you. And I shared all the amazing stories that I had while being in the United States, and he changed his mind. So like that's the most powerful thing that I've learned. Being abroad and coming back to your country, just serve as a cultural ambassador.
Okay, so I celebrated my birthday when I was in India, and one of the girls who I was on the fellowship with, one of my coworkers and another American who was working in my office, they did me like a surprise party. And I'm not friendly, but just for me to be able to see people who I'd known just for a few weeks who were like, felt compelled to celebrate my birthday with me on the other side of the world, not really knowing me, again, me not being that friendly, was a really powerful experience, because I did push myself to be more friendlier when I was in India and make friends, and even just like the relationship that I made with the Cultural Vistas staff since then. That was probably my most impactful experience. I'm like, wow, I have friends, and and just to be able to have that experience also while abroad was
Please.
Hi, my name is Bakur. I'm a current Muskie Fellow, also working with the same organization as Gulshat. I'm from Georgia, the country. My question is to Lenise. What advices would you give for someone who would want to get into the UN system, apart from having connections and knowing people? Any other hints?
Yeah, no, and that's not that helpful either, I have to tell you. If you can take the recruitment exam in a field of your choice, and they give the recruitment exam, it's called the YPP, the Young Professionals Program, and I think you can take the test up to 35 or 37. There is a cutoff age. That's, because the thing is that you're guaranteed to get, if you pass the test, then you're guaranteed to get a placement. So you're guaranteed to get a job. Another way would be to check to see with your mission, your foreign service. Sometimes they do offer what are called junior professional officer programs. So they'll be sponsored. They'll sponsor folks to come and work and who then are hired into the UN system. Another way would be to look at, depending on your situation, like, family situation, where you're willing to live, where you're willing to travel. There's always work in field missions. And if you can do that for a year or two and then, rotate out to another duty station, that's also a way to get in. The UN volunteer programs, UNV, which is run out of Bonn. So there's a number of UN offices that are now headquartered in Bonn that you can, look to work with the UNV programs, and they place you in places, and the pay is not great, but then they cover all of your expenses. So it's doable depending on, how long you do it and the experience. And a lot of people get into the system from being a UNV. So I would say those are kind of the three. And you can also actually, apply for jobs. There are times when they recruit externally, usually jobs, depending on as you go up the ladder, they take someone who's already sort of been working, because they like to promote from within. But there are definitely, jobs that are open where they're looking for really specific experience. They're looking for very, regional work. So for example, like there's a spokesperson position available in UNMIK, which is the UN mission in Kosovo. So they're probably going to hire someone from the former Yugoslavia because they have the language skills they have. But that's, a fairly high level position, spokesperson for that office. So you can also look and see what offices in UNDP and different UN agencies are in the region, because you would have language skills that other people, wouldn't necessarily have. So I would say look at those ways, getting in through the UN, getting in through your country and your mission. You can also contact usually the foreign ministries and the permanent missions to the UN will have someone who, like a small office that advocates on behalf of their nationals. So if you apply for a job and you're like, you can reach out to those offices. And as a matter of fact, the permanent rep from Georgia oversaw this committee that, that oversees the work of the Department of Public Information. And so, we know that Ambassador Mnatse would, call up if he had a national who was applying for a job and would make a call to say, I'd like to put in a word for this person. So don't think that you can't approach someone in a governmental office to say, can you put in a word for me? Even if you don't know, because these offices are established to help their nationals who are vying for jobs in the system.
One more question?
Sure. Lenise, sorry, another question for you.
Yeah.
So I'm like a year out of my program abroad, CBOIX in Germany. And CBOIX was arguably the most adventurous thing I've ever embarked upon ever in my entire short life. And looking back, you have 14 years since doing something like that. And I'm wondering how you kind of fuel that sense of adventure. Because for me, I get nervous that will be my most exciting year of my life. And I don't want that to be the case. And it's almost kind of a slight addiction. So I'm wondering how you fuel that sense of adventure.
Don't let that be the most exciting year of your life. You don't want to be my age and look back and be like, yeah, that was the high point. It was all downhill from there. What I will say, so I'm a person, I like to move, I like to go to places, I like to travel, and to the point where sometimes my family's like, you're gonna end up like on the news. You're gonna be one of those people where they're sending Jimmy Carter to get you from North Korea because I like wandered in someplace, gone hiking. But so one, the program, all the programs that you have done have set you up to continue doing things. So whether you work for a US company in their office someplace else abroad, whether you do another fellowship, whether you decide to pursue like a graduate program but in a school overseas, that's the beauty of these programs. It opens up your mind to all the things that are possible. And like, I like to travel and I like to go to different places, but I will tell you, I have never moved anywhere, like gotten up and moved without someone else paying for it. So when I live someplace else, either CNN has sent me there and they are paying for it, the UN has sent me there, someone is paying for it. Lenice doesn't just up and move. It's like, I'm gonna go backpacking. Like, we don't do that. So, no, that's not happening. But, you can still, there's a way to get that through. So, look for jobs with companies that maybe, or you're like, you know what? I was going to look at this company, but let me see if they have an office someplace else, that where I can apply for that job. Let me see if I can get a job that comes with a lot of travel. So, I mean, that's the best kind of travel when you're getting that business class ticket and you're like, oh, I'm not back in steerage. And you're like, yes, God, thank you. So, I mean, it doesn't have to be that you're, moving to Central African Republic tomorrow, then you're just like, yes, I'm going to do it. You can think about maybe if you're going to pursue postgraduate studies, would you study, in Europe or Latin America, or, would you get a job with the company and then say, you know what, I'd really like to be in our Singapore office. Like that's, the way for people who like a little bit of structure and who are like, I don't want that to be like the most exciting thing I ever did. Really start to think about, how you can, get your career. And the thing is, now that you have this experience, I can't even tell you, you're like, the unicorn when you walk in, it's like, oh, a Black woman who speaks German. Like people are like, oh yeah, you can do that. Yeah, go ahead. You can learn French. Why not? And so then all of a sudden people are like, oh, you've had this experience. We, yes, we would love to give you this job. You've had this exposure, you've done this, you have this background, and it will just, keep coming up. So keep, looking, sort of broadening, where you're willing to look and what you're willing to do. And then you'll start seeing like, oh yeah, I had this job where I was like traveling, or I got, they gave me this sort of country responsibility. And so I covered, Western Europe, or I covered Scandinavia, and that was kind of in my thing, or that was where I was doing my research. Because I think it is, once you sort of get the bug, then you start like, you're like, oh man, I kind of want to keep doing that.
That's a great question. Okay, I think we'll close it out and move back into the more social opportunity for you guys to network. Reagan, can I just ask you to close us out and give us any kind of lasting, you noted you love mantras. What's your mantra for the group?
So I have a twofold mantra for this one. I would like to steal what you said, Louise, which is don't lose the bug, because that is so true. Like keep applying for things abroad, because being abroad is fun, as we all know.
There's a fellowship gravy train out there. We had people in our class, we were like, is it another fellowship? So you can just keep looking, yeah, you know those. See, once you get into that system, then all of a sudden you're like, oh, wow.
But my second part would just be like, this is cheesy, but like do stay connected. Cultural Vistas has a lot of other programs. So if you've done one and you've heard each of us speak about our experiences, and it's like, oh, what she did sounds interesting. Then look it up, apply, network, speak to people here. They're doing events, like she said, we have the gala coming up in the fall. In Washington, D.C., we have a lot of events as well that I've been able to go to continue to stay within this network of people who are just like globally minded, which I think is important because not everybody has had those experiences to be able to stay connected with people in spaces where it's not something that's like, oh yeah, one time when I was backpacking in France. It's like really an ongoing hunger and thirst that people are trying to do, not just for their own personal development, but also just for relationships between the United States and other countries, and just kind of like the bigger picture of everything. So those would be my last thing. Don't catch the bug, and stay connected.
could just have Cultural Vistas staff raise their hand, these are your points of entree back into the organization. And Richard Bobo is our the head of our alumni network. Richard, any parting words that you have or words of encouragement to this group?
I think you guys did really well. I'd say make sure you join our Facebook group, our LinkedIn group, and keep your email up to date so we can invite you to events like this.
All right. Thank you. Eat, drink, and be merry. Thank you very much for being here.
I go, no one. Oh,